Hello and welcome to another episode of the Meaningful Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Chantal Gerardy, and I'm super excited today to be here with Priscilla O'Sughrue, if I didn't completely trash that. And we are going to be sharing a really interesting conversation today on ancestral and generational trauma, which I was surprised to hear can actually bring about your irrational fears. And we're also going to be talking about cutting cords when it comes to relationships. And some of you might be going, okay, what has this got to do with business and what has this got to do with marketing? And I can tell you now that having done this for the last 15 years, I see it all the time, that some of the most amazing business owners that I work with right now are held back by some of this stuff and can certainly benefit from some of this work. So we're going to share with you today some of how this shows up, how it could be affecting your marketing, how it could be affecting your business and your relationships and your partnership relationships. And we're going to get all the juice from Priscilla on what you can do to help make this better. Welcome, Priscilla.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Priscilla, how did you get into this work? I always ask for the story. You know, what's the story behind how you got to what you're doing right now?
Thank you. It started about 11 years ago, actually. I was studying my postgraduate diploma in relationship counselling, specialising in domestic and family violence. And what happened is it was a very small, intimate class, and we were studying around the modality of sexual violence and sexual assault and things like that, and how that impacts on the body and how the body holds on to the trauma around that. And I remember putting my hand up and asking a question to my educator and saying, does this mean da-da-da-da-da-da? And she says to me, what do you think? And I said, well, yes. And she said, you will need to heal from that. And I just said to her, oh, I'm fine. I've put it aside. I don't think about it anymore. I'm fine. And then I started crying. And she said, your body remembers everything. So you'll have to check in with your body and ask if you're really fine. And that was the catalyst of the beginning of my healing journey of doing the inner work. So what's happened is when I started doing the inner work, and I did it before breath work was a fad, before meditation was really well known, before any of the woo-woo stuff has come out, the ayahuasca plant ceremonies, all of that stuff where we can, have a bit of guidance when we're healing or doing the inner work. I did it all like by asking myself the questions, the really salient questions that would bring about the answers that I needed to actually move on and release the trauma that I was holding into my body. And it wasn't until 2021 when the world had come to a standstill, COVID was a thing, and there was a lot of fear. And as a qualified clinical hypnotherapist as well, I could recognize the language that our government and the media was using. It was all mass hypnosis to coerce people, I guess, to do what they wanted people to do. And I just knew straight away that it was bullshit. And I just went, no, this is not happening. And anyway, that just led me down to a path. I unfortunately felt the need to leave my corporate job. I loved it so much, but I also had my head and my heart in healing practices, because these healing practices that I had learnt and studied had made such an impactful difference to my life. I wanted to eventually go down that route. So when the mandates kicked in, it wasn't even a question for me. I left my high-paying corporate job. It was really super scary. But I had, I had a realization of what my sole purpose was, and that was to help other people by guiding them through what I had already learnt how to do myself and holding that beautiful space for them in that regard. And that's how I've come to do what I do.
Oh, excellent. I mean, I think it's been phenomenal after COVID because so many people have gone down the route of actually being more self-aware and looking after themselves. And I think we live in a really good space right now where people are actually welcoming health, wellness and fitness practices a lot more than they ever have. So
absolutely, and it excites me because the collective consciousness is slowly starting to rise.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that more and more people revealing the truth about who they really are and actually wanting to make themselves better people all round.
Yeah. I think a couple of years ago when I first, started transitioning from my health, wellness and fitness businesses and then went into my marketing business, of which everyone said to me, you can't do that. You're just a personal trainer. What do you know about marketing? And I had imposter syndrome, and that's another whole ball game. You can go listen to one of my other podcasts and I go through all of that. But one of the really cool things was what I found missing from all of it as I transitioned from one business to the other business. I was looking for that common thread. Like, what was the common thread from me having been a school teacher to being a fitness instructor, to being a personal trainer, to being a swimming coach, to being a triathlon coach, to being a nutrition coach, to then being a marketing coach.
Wow, you're so achieved.
Oh my gosh, it was insane. So, and I was like, what is this common thread? And I was like, I've obviously been put on this earth to use this mouth and give influence. And therefore that means I need to really take care of myself to make sure that the juice and the glitter that I share with this world is going to be valuable to others. Hence the podcast.
Absolutely. I believe every single thing we have ever been through, no matter how dark or how significant and how much impact it's made on us, is an opportunity for us to alchemize that and share our uniqueness, share our genuine self in our authentic self-expression. And there's always something that someone needs that we have to offer for somebody.
Oh, 100%, 100%. Somebody will be listening to this and get exactly what they need and it'll change their lives. So, super cool. So let's stay on track here. Let's talk about, and I mean, the reason I've got you on here for this is because firstly, I really value your expertise and I know that you're going to share some juice and glitter with us today. But also, like, I've seen this play out with a lot of my clients over the last couple of years, and I've seen how some of this ancestral stuff and some of this hanging on to relationships and not letting go of stuff has impacted how they actually run their businesses, how they run their marketing. And yeah, I can't wait to get into that today with you. So let's start with the ancestral and generational trauma. So talk to us a little bit about what that is. For those people out there who don't know what that is, what is that? And then how does that actually play out if you were a business owner and if you're managing your marketing and trying to grow a business? What are some of the things that could play out?
Our ancestors obviously that they've come before us and they've had their own unique life experiences. Some have been amazing, some have been not so amazing. And so when our ancestors continue to, I guess, recreate their lineage, which could be our mother, father, our grandparents or whatever, a lot of the stuff that is laying dormant in the body, a lot of the traumas and things that they went through, they come from a generation where let's not ruffle any feathers. Let's not speak the absolute truth because you're going to be offending people. Let's not use your voice. Let's just be subdued. Let's be submissive and let's just leave everything as they are. And they make babies, they make more babies, and their babies make babies. And what happens is, because we've got their DNA structure, their DNA is passed down from lineage to lineage to lineage. So that actually stops when one person in the family that is born decides that they're going to be that cycle breaker. They're the ones that are going to do that inner work and heal from not only their own traumas, but clear their ancestral trauma. And so how can that impact on business or marketing? That is an amazing question, and I'm so glad that you asked. I can use the voice as a perfect example. A lot of women and men are not they're not courageous enough to use their voice in the face of adversity, to use their voice to speak up against something that's not quite right, whether that be for themselves or whether that be somebody else, an animal or a child or an elderly in humanity. And what that does, the throat is connected to our womb in a woman. And if we go about our daily lives not expressing what we need to express and hiding parts of ourselves, the energy actually starts traveling down and it embeds in our wombs, in our hips, which is why a lot of the elderly have to have hip replacements. Wow. Because they've got a lot of stuck, trapped energy in their hips. So how does this impact on marketing? Well, we need our voice to market ourselves. We need to be our authentic selves. If we want people to buy our brand, they don't really care about what services we offer. They care about how we make them feel in that moment. They care about the level of safety that we can hold for them when they're utilizing our services. So the voice is a good way to one aspect, I guess, to learn how to use and speak the truth, even if it means that we're shaking by doing it. We're letting out not just our truth, but we're letting out energy that has potentially been suppressed by our ancestors as well. And that's how we can actually do the inner work, just by being brave, just by being courageous enough to face our fear of using our voice, for an example, and express ourselves the way we need to.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I know that, one of the things that has showed up for me, which I'm sure is an ancestral thing, is that I've had this money mindset thing all the time. Like, as I've grown my businesses and as I've expanded, and I've been aware of it, and I've gone and I've done the work, I've done courses, I've done affirmations, I've done, I'm aware of it, I'm doing the work, and I'm so excited about it. And then I go, logically, like, this all makes sense to me, but deep down in my body, it still keeps showing up. Like, it'll show up in my throat. Like, if something bounces, or, and I'm like, why is this still manifesting inside of me when I'm like working through this thing? And for me, when I look back, I go, oh, I look at my mother and I look at what she went through, and I've looked at what they went through in the culture, society in South Africa, and what they went through around money and the fears associated with it. And I go, like, logically, I'm working through this stuff, but I can still feel it inside my body, and it just makes sense. I love the way that you explained it there about how, like, the practical element of how that DNA is actually carried through the body.
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
Money stories is a big one as well with ancestral stuff, because if we've had, ancestors that come from a very poor lineage or an underprivileged lineage, then that can play out in our stories as well. I know for me, growing up, I grew up with my mother who was always very negative about money. Money doesn't grow on trees. No, you can't. I never asked for anything because I always knew the answer was going to be no. And my mother actually conditioned me and programmed me to think that people who had money, or actually had even comfortability, were often very selfish and stingy, or tight asses, as she would explain. And so I grew up going, well, I don't want to be wealthy. I don't want to have any money because I don't want to be that person. And it wasn't until I went to a Money Mind seminar, through great marketing, by the way, and I just realized, wow, my money story gets to change right here, right now.
Yeah.
And ever since then, it has.
Yeah, and then you change it, as you said, you break it then for your kids that are coming through as well, which
my
is
children
awesome.
are amazing savers now, and it makes me really proud knowing that they can save for anything.
Yeah,
My son's currently in between jobs, and so he says, "Oh, now I have to dip into my savings." And I said, "How good that you've got savings to do that."
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
So good. So off camera before we started, you surprised me with something that I had never quite thought about, and that was around how ancestral or generational trauma can actually give you irrational fears, and that's where those irrational fears come from. So talk to me a little bit about that, because that was a bit surprising for me.
We're naturally born as human beings. When we're first born, we're born with already two fears sort of instilled within us, in our soul imprint, I guess, and that is the fear of falling and loud noises, which is why we jolt when there's a loud sound that has been unexpected. And falling, well, no one wants to fall from anything that's high, like that would be detrimental to the human body. So they're the two fears that we're naturally born with. So it's quite natural to feel that way. But other fears, such as, oh, I'm fearing snakes, I'm fearing spiders, I have this fear of being, up high, all the irrational fears, and you don't know where they've come from because there's been no childhood trauma, you haven't been bitten by a spider or a snake, or you haven't fallen off a building. It's like, well, where have they come from? So this is where our ancestors play a big part. So they may have experienced something significant around a particular fear that we might be carrying that we can't actually rationalize, but it's coming from our lineage. And so we also get to clear that through different methods in doing different ways to work on that as well.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, I'm scared of heights. I don't like to say scared. I actually changed the word. I'm respectful of heights.
Oh, I love that.
I'm respectful of heights. So every single year I challenge myself with some activities. So, for example, I might do hot air ballooning. I did canyoning last year where I jumped off canyons and For 3 hours, I just jumped off these canyons in not New South Wales, in New Zealand. It was amazing, epic. I climbed up 13 waterfalls in the Philippines without any like harnesses and that. And I do what, we called it scheduled suffering, which is one of my other clients and podcast guests from a previous show. He talks about scheduled suffering. And I'm like, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing scheduled suffering.
But how do you feel now climbing?
Amazing. I actually went back to the Philippines last year and I did the 13 waterfalls again. And the first time I did the waterfalls, I was literally crawling up because the water's coming down on top of you as you're climbing up. And I was literally crawling. I'd scraped my legs from my thighs down to my feet. I could barely stand up on my feet after every waterfall. And there were kids, there were old people. Everybody else was just, running up the waterfalls. But I went back this last year and I actually swung off one of the waterfalls. I jumped off one of the waterfalls and I ran up the waterfalls and I had no issue at all. I actually looked back and I went,
fear?
It looked so much bigger to me the first time round. This second time round, I was like, my gosh, what was I doing? I must have looked ridiculous trying crawling up this waterfall, which in my mind looked ginormous. So getting back to this, I have this thing about fear around, respect around heights. So I always go and I stand over the edge and I look over the edge and I challenge myself with some of those things.
Perfect.
But talk to me about some other methods that you would encourage your clients to use, or some methods that you would do with your clients in order to be able to help them with some of these ancestral traumas.
I would ask them the question, what's your biggest fear on this planet? Most people will say death or public speaking.
Yeah, wow.
For me, I don't fear any of those things, but I try and encourage. So say, for example, you've got this fear of snakes. I would encourage you to go to someone who is very good at handling snakes and go to a non-venomous snake and hold that snake. Let it slither around you. Let it just sniff your essence. Let it feel your energy. And that will not only force you to be calm, but also force you to face that fear. And so if you do that often enough, that fear will no longer have any power over you. And this is exactly what fear is about. It has a power over you that limits your potential,
100%.
I believe, which will also limit your potential to show up for yourself in your business, to market yourself. And, I would just encourage to face your fears head on and know that you are safe in your body and that the universe has always got your back.
Look, I think it's a muscle that needs to be strengthened. Just like we go to the gym and we weight train and we pick up heavier things in order to be able to strengthen that muscle. It's the same thing, I think, when it comes to your fears and things that you're not uncomfortable doing. Because one of the other things that people will often come to me with is they go, I'm really bad at technology. I'm so bad at technology. I can't even look at that tech manual or that 1 hour training video on how to do that workflow. And I always say to them, look, you've got two options. One option is invest in yourself to be better at it. Oh, you've actually got three options. One option, invest in yourself so that you can be better at it. Number two is you can invest in getting a virtual assistant who is skilled in that and they can do it for you. Or number three is don't have an online business. Because
simple, really.
It's really simple. People go, oh, no, I don't really want to do online marketing. I don't want to pay for software and I don't want to learn it. I'm like, well, maybe you shouldn't have an online business. Go get a job. If you want to make sales online and, people are like, other people are buying their stuff, but they're not buying mine.
You've really got to put yourself out there.
Their marketing's better than yours. They went and learnt the tech. So getting back to it, if they're saying things like, I'm so bad at tech, and like you said, it's limiting their potential of now going and actually learning how to do that.
And what you say carries a frequency as well. Our words literally carry frequency. So what we say, I'm not sure who made this quote, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And that's the truth, because your mindset is everything. You could change that narrative and say, instead of saying I'm not good at tech at all, you can say, I am a tech genius and I apply my wisdom. Yeah. Even if you don't believe it, if you say it often enough, you're going to start getting into that frequency of being a tech genius. And so there it is.
Yeah, I love that. So good.
I need to apply that for myself, by the way.
We all do. We're all a work in progress. I think it is that awareness. Like you just caught yourself doing it.
Yep.
And awareness is the number one rule in getting started for anything.
100%.
Yeah, so good. So another one that comes up all the time is go back to that money mindset again, and that ancestral thing about, money mindset is around how, I can't charge that amount, people won't pay that. And they might say, so they might not want to put up their prices. Oh, nobody will pay that, so they don't put up their prices. Or they get on a sales call and they go, they're on the sales call, but you can tell in their voice that they don't actually believe in themselves or their product, and that somebody will actually pay that amount for it. So it's literally cock blocking. Cock blocking, them making sales, is this belief that nobody's going to buy that. So nobody will. What you say is what it is, right? So if that's an ancestral sort of thing, what would you say to a person who was going through that and had those issues? What are some of the methods or practices or exercises you would give them to be able to sort of get over that, over the idea of that, they're not worth that amount of money, or nobody will pay that amount?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would basically challenge my clients to look at perception as projection, right? So what you believe is what you're projecting out into the world, and so the world is going to reflect that back to you. And if you are in the mindset of, my clients could never pay that, you're already limiting the clientele that you can bring towards your business. Instead of saying, well, actually, I am worthy of charging more in my business because the people who actually need me will find me and they will be willing to pay anything because
Love
I'm
that.
amazing and I'm worthy and I'm deserving of raising my prices.
What a
And
great practice. Can you imagine getting up every single morning and saying that to yourself in the mirror?
a lot of it comes down to self-worth though, Chantal, and that is also passed down from our lineage as well, our ancestors. Think of all the women in our lineage, right? The women that came before us were more or less suppressed in every way. Women were not to speak up. They were not to use their voice. They were not to be in business. They weren't even to work. And all of a sudden we're in a day and age where we're doing all those things and we're learning how to reclaim not just our voice, our business marketing strategies, our gifts, but we're reclaiming who we are as the female, the divine feminine essence of society, and also reclaiming our voice, which is what our ancestors didn't know how to use. So I think it's actually a great thing to actually have that awareness around ancestral trauma and clear it, or do that inner work for not only them, but for your lineage when you have children.
Yeah, so many good points there. I know that, when I'm working with clients and they have this pricing issue, some of the things that I'll do with them is, the first thing is that we'll do a competitors analysis. So we'll go and have a look at what other people are charging for similar practices. And some of them are so amazed because they were like, oh, I just want to charge $200 for that program. And other people are charging, $2,500 for that version and online, or a program. It's not even one-on-one, and they're wanting to charge like $200 for like one-on-one. So it's just that awareness of actually have a look at what other people are charging, but also then looking at, those ancestral ties as well, like what's going on. Where's that belief coming from? And then looking at what can you do about it?
Yep.
You've got to do something about it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and sometimes it can change. I can never make my clients put up their prices. I give them pros and cons and I make them aware of it. And then from there, it's like, okay, when are you ready? And usually it's around this 5 or 6 month mark of working with them, where suddenly they'll come to me and they'll go, okay, I'm ready now. I feel comfortable to do that.
Amazing.
It takes a bit of time.
Yeah, some people are a little bit slower than others, and that's okay because everything is the perfect timing.
Yeah,
there's no
perfect
such thing as
timing.
right or wrong in timing.
Yeah, that's so exciting. So just last thing with the ancestral tie, and then I want to get up into the relationship cord cutting. But with regards to the ancestral stuff, if we get to change that now, so if we're aware and we get to change that. So if I say, okay, I respect heights, I'm now going to I'm going to work on that. I'm going to challenge myself on that. How does that play out with affecting my daughters, for example, my 3 daughters that have already been born into this world right now? And you said that, it goes into our DNA and then we change it. I've got my 3 daughters, they're growing up. How do I break that cycle and change that?
So if you haven't already broken that cycle,
Well,
you
how
mean?
does that happen? How does that really happen? Like,
Yeah.
if I'm doing this for myself and
Yep.
I'm, becoming aware and being more respectful about heights and challenging myself, and I'm doing all these things, how is that helping break the ancestral pattern down for them, the lineage to them?
Great question. So everything comes down to energy. At the core of who we are, the molecular structure, we are energetic beings. And in this borrowed human body, if you will. And so when we change the structure of our DNA by facing our fears, for example, keep going those waterfalls, go and do a bungee jump yourself out of a plane. And that is I would call it a very rational fear, actually, because I just did that on my 50th birthday. And I'm not scared of heights, but that was not a great experience, off topic. But when we change the structure and we change the way that we perceive our inner world, and our outer world it will reflect that back to us. Our DNA, the molecular structure of our DNA also is energetic, and that changes. So that's how we can help our children. If your children are already grown adults, that's how we can help them. And they're unknowingly having their DNA altered because of the work that you're doing to face your fears.
Ooh,
does that make sense?
Oh, I love
but you
that.
also change the DNA structure of your ancestors that have come before you, whether they're alive or whether they've passed on.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so good to hear. Good. I'm doing the right things.
You're doing all the right things. Your children are blessed to have a mother like you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about now relationships and cord cutting, because I know for myself, if I felt it difficult to get over a relationship and I'm constantly thinking about the person or thinking about what I could have done differently, and if I feel like it's affecting my business, my motivation, my creativity, the way I show up inside my business, you know, I often will encourage this to other clients as well if they've been through the same thing, when I go, oh, you know, why don't you like cut the cord? And I know for you asked me, you know, what does that mean for you? And I said, I love just the idea that somebody else was guiding me through something that I was struggling with, because I couldn't do it on my own. I felt I couldn't do it on my own. And the process of doing it really helped me feel better afterwards. Like that tie between them had helped. Definitely was an ongoing process for me, an ongoing process of getting better, because obviously there was something I still needed to learn from that experience, and I get that. But talk a little bit about, you know, relationships and cord cutting, because I'd imagine for people in business that have had relationships, broken up with relationships, maybe had a partner in a business, and now that relationship has fallen apart, which happened to me in my health, wellness, and fitness business. Or perhaps, you know, cutting cords. I've had clients who've had to cut cords with some of their kids, unfortunately, as they become empty nesters. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So after a relationship breakup, or even when we have been seeing someone, even if it's just a few days or a few weeks, when we decide to sleep with someone, which is most relationships, right? I don't know any relationships where they don't sleep with each other. But what they're doing is exchanging not just bodily fluids, but they're exchanging energy, right? So energy blueprint. When we're sleeping with somebody, let me just see what angle I can take this from. For example, when a man enters a woman and he ejaculates inside a woman, he's downloading all of his energetic blueprint inside of her. So if he's in a darker space, or if he hasn't healed his traumas or whatever, that's going to sit in our womb. That's going to sit in our uterus. So energetically speaking, it's important to cut those cords once you've felt through the relationship heartbreak, right? Because a lot of us don't feel happy about breaking up with someone. It's never an easy thing to do, and it's probably one of the most impactful human experiences that we can move through as human beings. But it's important to eventually, once you've moved through that process of the grief, to cut the cords and release not only yourself from that person, but to clear your body of the energy imprint, but to also release the other person as well, to move forward with love, always with love and with light. When we're a bit venomous towards a partner, that's probably not the time to cut cords, because we need to still work through that. But cord cutting is really important, especially if we desire to move on to the next relationship and we want that next relationship to be more healthier, less toxic. Then it's important to do that inner work and cut the ties, cut the cords, take the hooks out, the energetic hooks that partner imprinted in us, and just clear our energetic field so we're open to not only love but be loved as well, and have somebody meet us with where we're at, this newer version of ourself. So cutting cords is a very important aspect of not allowing entanglement as well energetically.
Yeah.
Because that can create confusion, and it also does not help when we've got cords that are still there attached when we need to show up in our business and when we need to market ourselves. We're carrying this pain, and even most people don't know how to read energy, right? I totally get that. I do. I'm brilliant at reading people's energy, but most people don't. And so people will feel if something is off with you. So if you're going out and marketing yourself and you've got this broken heart and you haven't moved through your own shit, then that's going to reflect back out to your audience as well. They're not going to know what it is, but they're going to go, oh, that person's not for me.
Yeah.
So doesn't it make sense to actually clear yourself and be the best version of who you can be? And that means just getting rid of other people's energetic debris that's in you or around you and being the best version that you could possibly be.
So would that apply then also to non-sexual relationships? So say partners in business or with your kids and that. Like I've just become an empty nester. My 3 daughters have moved out my house. And for me, like I felt like there was some of that mum guilt there. And so I've done a couple of practices, and for me that was like cutting the cord and, did my own little thing. And it was really around releasing the attachment and just sending them off with love to now to say that I've done my best for them in this life and now it's time to let you go and, be adults and learn and do things yourself. So is that part of that cord cutting? Is that something as well?
Yeah. When we allow somebody into our intimate space, our auric field pans out 1.5 meters.
Wow.
Right? So it's no surprise that when COVID happened, we had to stand 1.5 meters away from each other.
Yeah.
Let's not go there though. But when someone's in our intimate field, or when our heart has a strong affiliation with somebody, we can still exchange energy. And have you ever seen a video clip of there's 2 people meeting, one's coloured in black, the other one's just clear or white if you like, and the white one's the most positive, uplifting person, and the other one that's coloured in black is just really depressed and down and the shoulders are hunched forward, and then they merge together, they hug, and because the person that has got the positive energy hasn't sort of protected their own energy field, or they've absorbed the other person's energy. So I always try and speak to my clients about observe, don't absorb.
Yeah.
And how you can do that is just to protect your own energetic field. But if you haven't done that, we don't protect our own energetic field when it comes to people like our children or our partners or our parents. We don't really do that. And so whatever they say and do can absolutely create a ripple effect within our being as well. And this is where it's important to recognize what belongs to us and what belongs to them.
Yeah, nice. That's a great way to frame that, to do that practice of what actually belongs to me and what belongs to them. When I first started out, I said yes to everything, yes to every opportunity, and I gave my energy to everything, and I became absolutely exhausted, and I realized that I actually need to protect my energy.
Yeah.
And, now I've got to sit with myself, like you said, ask yourself what my body actually needs.
Yes.
I do that every morning now. Like, what do I actually need this morning, rather than just get up and follow my gym routine. I love a routine, but now I have a routine, but I still ask my body if that's what it wants to do, which is great. And then it's part of protecting my energy. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And another thing that I do, practice that I do every morning, is set my intentions. So if I want to call in more clients, I set the intention to call in the higher selves of soul-aligned clients, because I have a soul-aligned business.
Yeah.
And so if you want to do the marketing strategy, I set the intention to call in the most amazing soul-aligned marketing clients into my field. Or if you want to earn a particular amount of money that day, I set the intention to call in $2,000 or better. So when we set the intention and we tap on our heart, we're actually commanding to the universe what we desire in our business. And so all of it is relevant. Energetics in business is a super important aspect, whether people are conscious of that or not.
Yeah, excellent. That's so good. So very, very quickly, give me, what do you think your biggest meaningful marketing method would be for yourself personally in your business?
For me, I'm one of those people that hasn't really invested the time and energy into marketing. To be fair, I just market myself, I guess. I don't pride myself, but one thing I really love about myself is that I am my fullest self in my authentic self-expression. How I'm talking to you now is how I'm going to talk to my children. I'll probably talk to my children a bit more passionately, actually. I know I'm being watched right now, so it's like, behave and don't swear so much, Priscilla. It's just be yourself. Be who you are uniquely you, I guess, because everybody else is taken. Why do we want to be more like, why would I want to be more like Chantal when Chantal has got her own energetic blueprint? I am me, and I attract a lot of people into my field because of who I am. People are drawn to that light. They're drawn to the authenticity. If you have a look at the David Hawkins emotional frequency scale, have you heard of that?
Yes, yep, I've seen that.
So at the bottom you've got shame and guilt, and at the top you've got authenticity and love and all the good stuff, acceptance. Authenticity is the highest level of frequency that you can be embodying.
Yeah.
And so when you are in your authenticness, you will absolutely attract what it is that you want into your field. This is where we can call in, we can manifest, we can call in what we want, what we desire. And so for me, that feels like right now it is enough.
Yeah, that's
just
excellent.
to be myself.
I know that when I first started going online and I started first marketing myself and using my personal brand, I didn't know who I was, like authentically. I'd just come out of a marriage, so I didn't know who I was outside of being a wife and a mother. I'd moved from South Africa to Australia, so I had no idea who I was based on South Africa versus Australia. Had no idea who I was because I owned health, wellness and fitness centers. Now I was going into marketing. So it was a really good practice for me for probably a year after my divorce, where I went, I'm going to work out who I actually am. Who I actually am, what I actually like, what my values are, what my personal brand is.
Hell yeah.
So that then I could tap into it. And I went, there we go.
There she is.
That's what she is.
I also feel like you're probably like experiencing a death of the old identity of who Chantal was, and you were transitioning into a rebirth of the identity of who you were becoming. And then when you put your finger on that new identity, it was like, yes. Here I am.
Yeah, that past identity, and we could go for hours on this, but it was definitely societal. It was societal pressure from South Africa of how you should be and behave, societal pressure of what a wife should be like in a marriage, you know, so there was a lot of that, and it's no one's fault. I'm not going to blame all of anyone else's fault. It's just, for me, it was really important for me to sit down, have that awareness. And I spent a year doing it. It was amazing practice. People are going, a year, what the hell? I encourage you to do it. You know, who am I? Who am I truly? What do I really like? What is my purpose here on this earth?
And that is phenomenal, and well done for doing that, because a lot of people are too scared to really feel.
Yeah.
And it's in the feeling where we actually end up healing.
Yeah, I know, for sure. This has been amazing. We could go on for hours. How can people connect with you, Priscilla?
You can connect with me via social media. Just send me a message if you feel that there's something that I can help or support you with. I pride myself on being an amazing space holder, and you can contact me on Instagram through my page, I am Priscilla Oz, all one word, or my Facebook page, Priscilla Nicole Soulwork.
Yeah, and all those links will be in the bottom of the show notes as well.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. So this has been another episode of the Meaningful Marketing Podcast. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, comment, share, or give us a rating. If you'd like to private message me on any of my socials as well and let me know what other topics you'd like to hear about, I'd be more than happy to present an episode on that topic. See ya.